Shabbat shalom, everybody. It's go time. It's that time of the year or the time of the week again. And of course, my name is noelhadley. This is the Unexpected Cosmology. Thank you for making this a tradition in your home. And first and foremost, all praises go to the Father of Ruach. That would be the Father of Spirits, really the Father of all worlds. And all praises go to him, and of course, his Son in the flesh, Yahushua HaMashiach, or Jesus Christus, if you prefer, though I have come to know him as Yahusha. And I'm just, of course, grateful. I say this every week. I'm grateful for my very breath. You know, Yahweh, he breathes into Adam. He creates him. He forms him out of the red earth, and he breathes the breath of life into him. And that breath has passed on generationally all the way down to each one of us. And we are created in his image. We have consciousness of our existence. And with that consciousness, the moral responsibility to choose the ancient path, the way, we have the choice, the option to be in a covenant relationship with him. And I am so grateful for that. And I hope you guys are too. What a wondrous journey we are on. Now, I hope you guys will forgive me. I have so much to cover tonight. This is a big one. We are off to the races. Last week, I put it out there, I put a feeler, and I asked the community to send in a testimony, a video testimony about your walk, your relationship. It could be the Tuck community. It could be something that, a teaching here, or it could just be the Torah in general. And so what I want to do is, Jen Spurl, she sent this in to me. She is a member of our community, and you can come over to the Tuck Discord and chat with her there. She sent this in, and I want to play this for you guys and just put this out here again, put it out there that send them in to me, guys. And I would love it each week if I have a new video that I could just play for you guys from a different member of our community. So without further ado, here she is. Let me get this whole screen up so you don't have to stare at me while she talks.
Well, I'm Jen, and I wanted to share a testimony that I experienced after keeping Torah. It was the first thing I noticed was being healed of my anxiety disorder. We've been blessed so much since keeping Torah, but that is the biggest blessing I had almost immediately. So I'm going to look at my notes so I don't venture off, because I will go off on a little tangent. So since I was a little girl, as far back as I can remember, I loved order. And like on the first day of school, when the teacher would show all her list of rules and what's expected of you and where everything goes and the schedule for the day, like I loved that. That was like my favorite thing. I loved knowing the rules, and I liked keeping rules. And I was a very good girl. I did not like displeasing anyone in authority in my life, in the church, in my home, at school. So my academics weren't the best. I was just a little above average, but when it came to conduct, I was like top 10. So I don't really remember experiencing anxiety over getting something wrong until I was in second grade. I had challenged my teacher on evolution versus creation, and later on, several days later, I won't get into all the details of it, but of what led up to it, but the class got lined up to go out to the restroom or whatever, art, and she kept me back, and she gripped my wrist and she shook me, and she said, "Keep your Bible out of school." And I can still see her watch. I can still see her long, skinny fingers and her pointy nails. And so I don't really remember anything after that in second grade. And I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell the principal. I didn't tell any friends. I just kind of shoved it down, and I became a different child after that, and I didn't like going to school, and I woke up every morning sick to my stomach, and I didn't know why. I didn't know how to put that together. I was like 7 years old, and I couldn't relate it. So I began to throw up a lot, and my parents would take me to the doctor or the ER because I couldn't stop throwing up. There was like no stopping it once it started. I was like convulsing, and I would get very dehydrated, and they would say, "Oh, she has ulcers, she has gastroenteritis," and so I think the trauma just lodged in my gut, um, and um, I just blocked out the memory to protect me, to probably to protect my body at that time. That's what happens with trauma a lot of times. But I think just the rug got pulled out from under me because I had never displeased someone before. It just didn't occur to me that this teacher wouldn't be excited to hear what I had to say, and I just did not like to displease people. So in my mind, I had done something unacceptable, and it kind of scrambled my brain. And since my zealousness resulted in this persecution, I subconsciously developed some major trust issues with the Most High. And so from then on, I had terrible attendance. I missed as much school as I could, um, without having to be held back and without failing. Like, I still didn't want to fail any of my classes. I wanted to have good grades. And so I went as little as I had to. Like, I wouldn't raise my hand in class. I would sweat if I was called upon. Even like getting up to sharpen a pencil would cause so much anxiety because people would be looking at me and I didn't want to mess up. So I was just anxious over every little thing and every little decision, and I would get physically ill often. And so in high school, I did go to some counseling, and it did help to talk, but I just didn't have that trust with the Most High. I just didn't fully trust His sovereignty for my life, and I didn't trust that He had me. And I didn't really fully understand that it's because I felt like He had failed me when I was little. But when I graduated high school, I didn't want any more school. I didn't want to go to school anymore, but I didn't have a choice in the matter, and so I went to college. And I realized, okay, I'm an adult now, and I don't have to do this. And so I did I did very little school. I went to class very little. I passed kind of in the first semester by the skin of my teeth, and then I just really stopped. I went for 3 semesters and just eventually stopped going. I thought, I'm going to work, and I'm going to do what I want. And I totally went off the deep end and rebelled against my parents, and I rebelled against my Elohim. And I went from like squeaky clean Christian counselor, camp counselor, to a drug dealer. And marijuana was everything to me. I smoked it from sun up to sundown, and my anxiety was abated as long as I was high. I was good. My friends continued down that road and would use harder substances, but I didn't like doing that. I was happy with smoking weed, and I was kind of always natural health minded, and so I wanted to do natural things. And how I was miraculously rescued from that whole situation is a totally other thing. Long story. So I tried the pharma thing to help with anxiety a couple different times in my life, and it just made me feel worse because I was more anxious about the potential side effects of drugs than I was about my pet sin of anxiety that I had carried all of my life. So cut to like, I leave that whole life behind. I go back to Yah, in the church, and I'm married. I have my daughter. I have another daughter, Annie, and after her birth, I ended up checking myself into a mental hospital, and they diagnosed me with postpartum anxiety disorder and panic disorder. Big shock. And pills were the only answer there. And it wasn't what I hoped for, and I didn't like what I found there. And so I just stayed in my room, didn't really eat, didn't really sleep, and all I did was read the Word. I just remember starting in Psalms 1 and just reading all the way through, and then starting it over again, and that is what made me come back to myself in a way. And so I realized that was a shift for me, and that the Word really is the best medicine that I have, and that He has gifts in nature that help enhance His healing that can benefit me, but He Himself was it, period. But I didn't really fully know what was expected of me. I still didn't know that. And I kind of floundered for years after that, still as a Christian, but I had no poster board of rules in my classroom other than love your neighbor. And I definitely did that. You better believe I loved my neighbor, but I felt tossed in the waves, like scripture says. Like I was reaching for him all of my life and for truth, but I would get sucked down in this fear of the unknown, this fear of what was in front of me, and it was scary. And I'd love to go into more detail about everything that led us to Torah in those years, but I'll be more concise. So in January of 18, I determined to start again the Read the Bible in a Year reading plan, and I was going to complete it that year, and I did. And that when I got to Genesis 6, the Nephilim, that was a huge catalyst for me. And quickly following that was biblical cosmology, and finally realizing that Abba is right there, like the earth really is literally his footstool. It's not just a metaphorical thing. That healed me. And I could take his word literally was everything to me. And so lots of things occurred then, but it was after keeping Torah for a few months, it hit me, oh my gosh, I haven't had an anxiety attack in a while. Like this was, I lived with it constantly all the time. And I was so consumed with the Torah that I was like, whoa, what's going on in my mind? He had always had these instructions for me, and they were right there. And I finally had some concrete expectations to go by from him. And I was just too busy getting acquainted with them and like falling in love with the Old Testament, like so excited to read the Old Testament that I just didn't have an anxious thought. I was just too busy with him. And keeping Torah put so many pieces together for me that I began to trust him more and more with everything. And the verse that says, "Do I live to please man or Elohim?" summed up my entire life. I realized that pleasing man and trying to keep man's shifty rules doesn't work. And I had to hold that verse so close to me, especially that first year where we were displeasing people in our lives and disappointing our loved ones because of the way of life this new way of life that we chose. So the temptation to pick anxiousness back up or go into a panic is still something that I face. But I have learned a lot of new ways to cope with that and natural ways to ease those symptoms. But the best weapon I have is literally the Word and the one person who embodies the Word, Yahushua HaMashiach, my Messiah. And really there's no end to unraveling the mysteries of his Word, and that's what helped me so much. It saved my sanity. That it's not all buttoned up and explained in John 3:16, that he has more to show me, and I only find it if I'm on the narrow way. I have nothing to fear anymore about the unknown ground in front of me because it is his path, and any other way will lead to my destruction. Shalom.
All right, thank you, Jen, for that. And I love how the train came in at the end. So for the rest of you out there listening, please send in your testimonies, and I'll just start playing them week after week. And this is a community effort. So let's get right into this right here. Deuteronomy, or Devarim, week 47. And we'll be going through chapter 11:26 through 16:17. Forgive me again, I'm going to mispronounce that, but Reah, I guess, Reeh, and we'll be covering what that word means. Now, before I get into this, as a reminder, tickets went on sale this last Wednesday at 12 noon for the Unexpected Cosmology Passover Retreat 2025 at Lake Fort Smith State Park in Arkansas. Mark it on your calendars, March 26th through the 30th. Passover meal will be Friday evening. That would be the 28th. And of course, the 29th will be the first day of unleavened bread. It lands on a Sabbath. Of course, I'm a seventh-day Sabbath keeper, and so it's also a high Sabbath. It's just gonna be a great retreat time, community time coming together. We're gonna have baptisms, other things like that. And if you need help getting tickets, Right now, it is for ministry supporters. It's private, the ticket sales, Patreon, so on and so forth. Some of you are still kind of thinking about it, praying about it, and trying to work it out vacation time. If you need any help on this, please contact me. You could email me. You could get in contact on Discord, and I will work with you with how many heads you have, men, women, so on and so forth, and fit you into the right place. Try to accommodate your needs as best as possible. And then whatever is left next, probably within the next week, I'm going to be putting it on public sale. So by next Sabbath, Torah portions next week, I'm sure will probably be public. You can see right here, here's a map. And, but I have a whole information page on this on my website, so you can go check it out. And one more announcement is Hebrew Match. This is what we launched 1 week ago. And this is another aspect of this ministry. So for everyone out there, all the Hebrews and Shebrews that are seeking your, oh dear, I think my daughter is, she watches me on TV. I was telling her this morning about how her daddy's going to be on TV. She was getting really excited. And then she sees me on TV downstairs and she comes up here crying because she wants to be, pretty soon she's going to be my co-host. She's only 2 years old, but I'm thinking real soon she's going to be my co-host. But getting back to Hebrew Match, for all the Hebrews and Shebrews out there that are looking for your help meet to walk the way and follow the Father's commands with you, this is the place for you. So just as a reminder out there, I will officiate weddings, and on request, I will give speeches at your wedding. So please invite me if you do meet on here, and find your special someone. And it's free to join, just so you know, it's free to join. It only takes a couple minutes. Go sign up. All right. Now you can see the Ria, if I'm pronouncing that right, it means observe. And here we go. Observe. I give to your face this day a barakah, a blessing, and a cursing, a blessing and a curse. The barakah, when you hear, understand, and obey the commandments of Yahweh your Allah, which I establish unto you today, and conditionally, the imprecation, if you do not hear and obey unto the commandment of Yahweh your Allah, and turn aside out of the way which I command you this day to walk after Allahayam, Akarayam, which you have not known. And maybe you need your helpmeet for this to help you on the way to obey the commands. I will say really quickly, when I came to the Torah, February 2019, I was so blown away to hear about the blessing and the curse. And I was like, what? Because I was always, just told that you're just a pile of vomits, and you're just a filthy rags, your righteousness. You can never amount to anything. And all you can do is point to Messiah and, just point to him. And he's, he did everything. And if you do any kind of work, any good work, now you're spitting on the cross. And when I saw this, and I was like, no, you choose, you make the decisions by your actions, the blessing or the curse. And it's not pointing a finger at a certain God. It's walking the walk. That blew my mind. And of course, this is what we'll be talking about tonight. And it shall exist if Yahweh your Allah shall bring you toward the land where you go there to possess her, and you shall gift her the barakah, the blessing upon Mount Gerizim, and the imprecation upon Mount Abel. Are these not on the region beyond the Yarden River, following the way of Hashemash's entering in the land of Canaan, who settled down to dwell in the dry and arid region over against the Galagal, near the oaks of Maraha? For you are the ones passing over the Yarden to go inherit the land which Yahweh your Allah gives unto you. And you shall possess her, and you shall settle down to dwell in her, and you have guarded for working by labor all the statutes and the judgments which I give unto your face this day. Now, if you need to see this in terms of our life, like none of us, well, I shouldn't say none of us, because some people are waiting for a second Exodus to happen, but generally none of us are waiting to enter into a physical land, right? None of us are going, when am I going to go into Israel? When am I going to cross the River Jordan? Like in our lives, we're waiting to enter into the heavenly kingdom, whatever your cosmology is on this. And so this applies to us. in every sense of the word. What he is saying right here, this applies to us. We are the generation. We are waiting to enter into that kingdom eternally. These are the statutes and the judgments which you will guard to fashion upon arats, upon the earth, which Yahweh, the Allahaya of your fathers, gave to you to possess her all the days which you exist upon the red ground. You will destroy the places of habitation where the nations which you are dispossessing them serve their Allahayam, upon the exalted raised up mountains and upon the hills and beneath every green tree. And you have torn down their altars and have broken into pieces their statues and their Asherah poles or Asherah you shall burn with fire. And the graven images of their Allahaya you shall cut down and destroy their name from the place of habitation. You shall not fashion in this manner unto Yahweh your Allahaya. Now, remember the theme is observe. Observe. So now he's telling you what to observe and completely remove in faithfulness, but conditionally toward the place of habitation, which Yahweh Allah Yakam shall choose from all your tribes to place his name there. Unto his place of habitation you shall go, treading about, frequently seeking that place, and you will enter there. And you shall bring there your ascending offerings and your sacrifices and your tenth parts and the gift offerings of your hand and your avowed offerings and your spontaneous offerings and the firstlings of your cattle and your flocks, and you have eaten there to the face of Yahweh your Allahaya, you and your houses, with that which Yahweh your Allahaya did barak you. And remember, barak is blessing, which is a big word for tonight. You shall not fashion like all which we are fashioned here this day, every man doing what is upright in his own eyes. For you have not come as far as now toward the place of rest and toward the inheritance which Yahweh Allah Yak gives to you. When you have passed over the Jordan, and you will settle down to dwell in the land which Yahweh your Allah causes you to receive as an inheritance, and rest be given unto you from all your enemies from a circuit round about you. And you settle down to dwell in safety, confident, secure, and the place of habitation which Yahweh your Allah shall cause his name to dwell there. There, at that place, you shall bring him all which I command you, your ascending offerings and your sacrifices, your tenth parts, and your gift offerings of your hand, and all the most excellent, select avowed offerings which you will vow unto Yahweh. And you have been glad, rejoicing, leaping for joy to the face of Yahweh Allah Yakam, you and your sons, and your daughters, and your servants, and your Amahath. That would be like maid servants or maidens. Let me just look here. Handmaiden. And your handmaidens, and the Levites, or the Lahwayam, which is within your gates. For there is lacking to him any portion of inheritance with you. Remember, the Levites don't inherit any land. Guard for yourself. Beware lest you cause your ascending offerings to ascend in any place of habitation which you will see, rather conditionally, only in the place of habitation which he shall choose in one of your tribes. There you shall cause to ascend your ascending offerings, and there you will fashion all that I command you. Now, I could be wrong on this, but I did explain in weeks back why I think Yahweh is so adamant about, at least one of the reasons, why he only wanted these sacrifices to happen in specific areas so that they could be policed, really, from the Levites. So there's no like second guessing, like why is there a smoke off ascending offering over there? Like what God is he praying to, right? So if you're off in the woods in some random place and doing things your own way, there could be accusations. But here, you're bringing to a select place to a specific Allahayam, no questions asked. Seems pretty straightforward. You can't be accused of Asherah, Ashtoreth, or whatever at this point. That's my theory. Only with all the pleasure of your nephash will you sacrifice, and you have eaten flesh according to the barakath, which Yahweh your Allah gives to you in all your gates. The unclean and the clean alike may eat him, like the gazelle and like the hart. Only you will not eat the blood. You will pour him upon the earth like water. You will not eat him, or the blood, for the purpose and intent that he, Yahweh, will be well pleased with you and with your sons after you, for you shall fashion the upright in the eyes of Yahweh, the ever-living. Reminders, everyone. I covered this a few months ago. that if you are new to this, one of the big things when people come to the Torah is, oh, the blood, I can't eat the blood. Look, you can go to a steakhouse and you can eat that steak raw. There is no blood in that. I'm not saying to eat it raw because that kind of grosses me out, but the red stuff in the meat, in the hamburger and stuff like that's not blood. All right. It's been drained. Where was I? I lost my place. Start from the top. You will not eat him the blood for the purpose and intent that he, Yahuwah, will be well pleased with you and with your sons after you, for you shall fashion the upright in the eyes of Yahuwah, the ever living. You do not prevail to eat within your gates from the 10th part of your corn and your new wine and your fresh oil, or the firstlings of your cattle and your flock, or any of your avowed offerings which you will vow, or your spontaneous offerings, or your gift offerings of your hand, for conditionally to the face of Yahuwah Alahayak, you will eat him in the place of habitation which Yahuwah your Alahaya will choose. You and your son and your daughter and your servant and your Amath, your handmaiden, and the Levite, the Lahwaya, which is within your gates. And you have rejoiced with merry voices, leaping for joy to the face of Yahuwah your Alahaya, and all from which you send out your hand. Guard for yourselves. Beware, lest you forsake the Levites all your days upon the red ground. And again, that goes with my theory on this. It makes pretty good sense that the Levites are setting up stations where you go and worship Yahuwah and bring your sacrifices. Don't forsake them. Because if you do, there might be another priest standing off in the woods for another god, and you might be going off to them. Listen to the Levites. Instructions regarding eating meat. If Yahuwah your Alahaya should expand your territory like that which was planned for you, that's kind of interesting condition right there. And you should declare, I will eat flesh, for you desire in your soul, your nephash, that you may eat flesh. But if the place of habitation which Yahuwah your Alahaya shall choose to place his name there be distant from you, and you have slaughtered from your cattle or from your flock which Yahuwah gives to you, like that which I commanded you, and you have eaten within your gates in all the desire of your nephash, assuredly like the gazelle in the heart, in that manner you shall eat them. The unclean and the pure in union, he shall eat them. I feel like this is a whole study in and of itself, which I need to get to someday, and talking about, eating meat in the Bible. And if the station is too far from where you're at, only make yourself strong as long as you do not eat the blood, for the nephash is in the blood, and you will not eat the nephash with the flesh. You shall not eat him. Upon the earth you shall pour it out like water. You shall not eat it for the purpose and intent that he will do well for you and for your sons after you. For you will fashion that which is upright in the eyes of Yahuwah the ever-living. Only your set-apart things which exist for you and your avowed offerings you will lift up. And you will have gone toward the place of habitation, which Yahuwah will choose. And you have fashioned your ascending offerings, the flesh and the blood, upon the altar of Yahuwah your Alahaya, and the blood of your sacrifices he will pour out upon the altar of Yahuwah your Alahaya. And the flesh you will eat. Observe, and you will have heard, understood, and obeyed all these dabar re'am, which I commanded you, for the purpose and intent that he will do good to you and to your sons after you, as far as the eye can see or perceive, to the horizon and beyond, until time of long duration. I love that description that Pamela always puts in there. That, just when you think about, the amazing thing about the horizon, no matter how high you climb, it always rises to eye level. So whether you're 5 or 6 feet off the ground, or you get up in an airplane and go, what commercial airlines go at 30 to 35,000 feet, somewhere in there. You look out that window and it just rises to eye level. Like it looks like we're in this big giant bowl, right? It just rises up and up and up. And of course that no matter how high you rise, 120,000 feet, it's still going to do that. And so this idea that to the horizon and beyond, that's her way of describing forever. There's no end to this measurement. You will never reach the horizon of when the Torah comes to an end. There is no point on the horizon because it's beyond the horizon. For you will fashion the excellent, the beautiful, the pleasing, and the upright in the eyes of Yahweh your Allahayah. When Yahweh your Allahayah shall cut off the nations where you go there as a powerful sign to possess them from before your face, and you dispossess them, and you settle down to dwell in their land, keep watch for yourself. Beware lest you be caught, snared into following after them, after their destruction from before your face. And beware lest you trample about, seeking for their Allahayam, to declare how the nations serve them, their Allahayam, that I may so fashion in like manner. You will not fashion in that manner unto Yahweh your Allahayah. For every abomination which Yahweh hates have they fashioned unto their Allahayah. For even their sons and their daughters they have burned in fire unto their Allahayah. The entire matter which I have commanded you, you have guarded to fashion these. You will increase over him, and you will not scratch off, taking away from part of him. This is where it really hits the fan. Like, this is one of the best chapters in the whole Torah right here. This is where, well, let's you can line up anything in the whole of biblical canon to this chapter. And if you want to test, like, is something scripture doesn't line up with Deuteronomy 13, it's called the Deuteronomy 13 test. That includes Paul. Does Paul line up with the Deuteronomy 13 test? Let's talk about it. If a prophet will arise in your midst, or perhaps a dreamer, and will give towards you a powerful sign, or perhaps a splendid deed, and the powerful sign or the splendid deed which he purposed has come to pass, meaning he is a true prophet in the sense that he spoke and it happened, or he performed some amazing miracle, and everyone's like, whoa, this guy must be, he writes letters, this guy must speak for God, and should declare, we will walk after Allahayam Akarayam, or you could say other gods, which you have not known. Now, keep in mind, Yahweh has just told you that he has in chapter 12, he has a very specific way of doing things. And if you do things differently, you're doing things according to other gods. All right. He has a very, very specific in his judgments, in his law, he has, well, we're going to get to it tonight, right? There's a way you eat clean. It's amazing that this follows this. Like, if anyone comes and tells you that you can eat animals that are not on this list, that is following after other gods. If anyone comes and tells you that there are these feasts you keep aside from these feasts right here. Now, I'm not talking about, like, I have no problem with Mother's Day or whatever. If you guys, want to do that stuff, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, we are no longer keeping the feast of Yah. That is another God. That's not this God. You will not hear and obey toward the speech of that prophet, or perhaps toward that dreamer of the dreams. For Yahweh your Allahayah does to test you, to acquire knowledge, whether present ready you will love Yahweh your Allahayah with all your heart and with all your nefesh. Now, I just want to point out to everyone here that I believe Paul is legit. I do. So if anybody is new and you're like, why is this guy talking? I believe Paul is legit, but I believe he's a test. And I believe the ending of the Bible, those letters at the end of the Bible, if you read those and you're like, the law is done away with, I can eat my pork, I can, Jesus is my Sabbath rest now, I don't have to keep the fourth commandment, we only have 9 commandments now. I mean, if that's how you read the Bible, then I'm telling you right now, you have failed the test. You have failed the exam. You have failed the course. You missed out. He just said right here, this is the test. He says he is going to put false prophets in front of us to test us. And that's one of the whole points of the anti-Paul crowd, is they're saying literally there isn't a false prophet at the end of our Bible there to test us. Now, again, I don't think he's a false prophet. I used to. I can see both sides of the argument. He's a test. How you read him. I mean, again, if anyone reads him and goes, he's saying it's okay for me to be lawless, then that version of Paul is a false prophet. I do believe that there is a true Paul, a Torah observant Paul. I keep getting excited, and I have to remember where I was last. Well, let's just go from the top. After Yahweh your Allahayah, you will walk. So he tells you right here, the way. You go after him, like his judgments, his statutes. Anything else is falling away from the way. It is going some other path. Let's not, let's not convince ourselves otherwise and fool ourselves. And him you will reverently fear, and him you will serve, and unto him you will cling. And that prophet, or perhaps that dreamer of dreams, he will die for the deceptive speech against Yahweh your Allahayah, who caused you to go forth from Eretz Mitzrayim, that would be Egypt, and who set you free from the house of servants in order to drive you out of the way which Yahweh your Allahayah has commanded you to walk. And you shall exterminate the evil from your midst. The idea that he will die, that is a command. He is supposed to be killed. We'll be talking about that a little bit, about Paul and how the Pharisees tried to bring about Deuteronomy 13 for his entire ministry. But this is also, again, on earth as it is in heaven. Everything that is physically supposed to happen is an eternal thing. So he's basically saying that if you fail the Deuteronomy 13 test, you could be a prophet. You're going to experience the eternal death, because you have led people away from righteousness. And of course, Yahushua HaMashiach says, look, if you want to set the bar really low and you want to play Russian roulette with your soul, and you want to be the least in the kingdom, like you so don't care about eternity, you just want to barely make it through, then disobey the least of the commands. And not only that, teach others to do that. You will be the least. That, again, and I call that the Russian roulette with your soul. There's one real bullet in there, and you're just going click, 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 and taking a chance. If your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or perhaps your daughter, or perhaps the covenant woman of your bosom, or perhaps your companion, which is like your own nephesh. This is where Yahushua says, I come to separate the fathers from sons and the brother against brother. Like, the whole households are divided on this. And you guys know this. There are those of you out there who are following the commands. And I hate to say this. I mean, I want to be kind of, you guys know the struggles you're going with, where people are trying to get you to disobey. I mean, I've had that experience in my life where my family members, not my, my wife and children, but, my extended family, they will come on a Sabbath day, and they'll go out, buying food, and like, no, why don't you eat this? This is so good. They try so hard to get you to break it. They just don't want you to keep it. This is writing to those people. Sorry, I'm getting so excited tonight, but this is the Torah, baby. This is like passion. Anyways, these family members in secret, they're coming to you, and they say, we will walk and we will serve Allahayam Akarayam, which you or your fathers have not known. Interesting phrasing. From among the Allahayah of the people which are in a circuit round about you, the ones in the midst toward you, or perhaps from the part of the end of the earth, even into the other extremity of the earth. The way they do this today is that they form their own they have their own personal Jesus. I think that's the Depeche Mode song from the 80s. And, they will form Jesus Christos into their image, and they will say, no, this is the true God. You're not supposed to do that one from the Old Testament. This is no, that is the other God he's talking about here. All right. It's very clever and deceptive. I'm just getting too excited tonight. I'm sorry, guys. I need to calm down. You will not desire after him, and you will not hear and be obedient toward him. And you will not have pity in your eye toward him, and you will not have compassion, and you will not cover over a pardon over him. For slaying you will slay him. Your hand shall exist upon him among the first to put him to death. Then the hand of all the people afterwards, and shall overwhelm him with stones, and shall slay him, for he sought to thrust you away from Yahweh your Allahayah, the one who caused you to go forth from Eretz Mitzrayim, from the house of the servants. This right here is testimony to me why I believe that Paul is legit. If he is not legit, the disciples messed up. The apostles, they messed up. They failed this command. They went their whole lives, they failed this command. They should have put him to death. Then all Yasharel shall hear and shall reverently fear and shall not again multiply to fashion like these evils, noxious, calamitous instructions in your midst. If you will hear in one of your cities, which Yahweh your Allah shall give unto you to settle down to dwell there, someone saying, he has gone forth, men, sons of Belial, means wickedness. Let me check here just to make sure. Yeah, worthlessness or wickedness or destruction or destroyer. Sons of the destroyer from your midst, and he has drawn away the inhabitants of their city to declare, we will walk and serve Allahayam, Akarayam, which you have not known, and you have trampled about seeking, and you have investigated, and you have interrogated well, and behold, the matter be established as true. They have fashioned there this abomination in your midst. Smiting, you will smite those who settle down to dwell in that city. By the mouth of the sword, devoting the destruction, her and all which is in her, even the beast, by the mouth of the sword, and all the plunder you will grasp with the hand toward the midst of the open plaza, and you will burn with fire the city and all the plunder, every implement, unto Yahweh your Allah, and she will exist a heap of ruins for time of long duration, and will not be built up yet again, and nothing shall cling in your hand from anything. And part of the devoted things for the purpose and intent that Yahweh your Allah does not turn back from the burning heat of his anger, that he will give unto you tender affection and shall love you and shall increase you like that which he solemnly swore unto your fathers. For you will hear, understand, and be obedient unto the voice of Yahweh your Allah to guard all his commandments, which I command this day, to fashion what is upright, just, true in the eyes of Yahweh your Allah. I want to comment, but I kind of keep going, or else I'm never going to get through this. More instructions concerning living set apart. You are sons unto Yahweh your Allah. You will not cut into yourself, and you will not render a bald place upon your eyes for the dead. For you are a set apart people unto Yahweh your Allah, and upon you Yahweh has chosen to exist a sign unto him of a people, his personal property, from all the peoples which are upon the red ground. What did we just read? So there's generally one of the things I found with a lot of the Torah crowd is that it attracts a lot of kind of boots on the ground, kind of farming kind of people, which is awesome. But a lot of exoteric thinkers, meaning they'll read something like this and go, okay, so here's my checklist. As long as I don't cut into myself or render a bald place between my eyes for the dead, I'm good to go. Just those two things there. So when I read something like this, and we have to be real careful about adding or taking away from the commands. But you have heard me say many, many times that the Torah is intended to be a transformative document. When I read the Torah, I don't think, okay, I need to transform myself into a person living a nomadic shepherd in the wilderness 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. No, I that's not how I read it. There is nowhere in our culture today that I know of. Well, actually, people will get tattoos for the dead, and you'll see like people, like maybe a child died or a loved one, and they'll put their picture on them as a tattoo. I would say that's a definite no. But when I read stuff like this, I'm like, okay, how does this translate into just life in general? On a more, if the letter of the law can be shown to be a spirit, if there's a spirit behind a heart issue, how does that heart issue manifest into a number of different ways? So just something to think about there. So again, like we'll read things like, don't bind your head, like elongate your skull or whatever. Like who does that, right? Those are the issues that Yah is like, okay, you're going into this culture. This is what they do, and I don't want you to do it. I would read it and go, okay, what are things in our culture today that are like, we shouldn't be doing those things? You shall not eat any abominable thing. Now, this is great because we just went through Deuteronomy 13, and he's like, if anyone tells you to worship any other gods, don't listen to them. And he's telling you now I'm not going to change. I am unchanging. What I'm about to tell you now, this is me. Anybody who tells you to eat an unclean thing, they are telling you to worship a different God. It could be the same name. Obviously, Jesus is only about 500 years old. I always get myself in trouble when I say that, but it's the truth. But anyways, let's keep reading. You shall not eat any abominable thing. This is the beast which you shall eat. So this is what you can't eat. The ox, one of the flocks like lambs, and one of the flocks of the she-goats, deer and gazelle, and reddish deer and roe, and leaping gazelle, and swift gazelle, and zamar. What is the zamar, Pamela? This word only occurs once in relation to animals. All other instances is rendered a singer of some type of plucked musical instrument. Okay, well, you can't eat the zamar until we figure that out. And all beasts dividing the hoof and cleaving into two hooves from ascending rumination among beasts. Basically, split hooves, chew its cud, right? That's the checklist. If it chews its cud, doesn't have a split hoof, don't eat it. It has a split hoof, doesn't chew its cud, don't eat it. These you shall eat. These you shall eat. Surely, however, these you shall not eat from these with ascending rumination and from the ones dividing the hoof. The camel, the hare, the Cephon. This is a coney, I guess. For though they bring up the cud, yet the hoof is not divided. There you go. Pretty simple way to check an animal. They are unclean to you. And the swine, for though dividing, it divides the hoof, yet it does not ruminate. It is unclean to you. You shall not eat from their flesh. You shall not touch upon their carcass. And this you shall eat from all which are in the waters, all which has to him the fin and scales. You shall eat him. So you pull anything out of the water. If it has fin and has scales, you're good to go. If it does not have a fin but has scales, throw it back. If it has scales but not a fin, throw it back. You shall eat him. And any which lacks to him fin and scales, you shall not eat him. It is unclean to you. Pretty straightforward. Shark, throw it back. Stingray, throw it back. Trout, good to go. Any clean bird, you shall eat him. These are the ones which you shall not eat him, from the eagle or the griffin vulture and the ossifrage and the azunuya and the vulture and the clamorous bird and the diaha of her species. Okay, Pamela, what are these? Species of eagle and a bird of prey like a falcon or a vulture. Don't eat those. And all ravens after his species, and the daughter, the ostrich, and the thucamas, and the gull, and the hawk after his species, the pelican, and the yanu saf, and the thunu shamath, and the kuhath, and the shalak, and the stork, and the angry bird after his species. Well, the angry bird, it's actually in the Bible, the angry birds, and the hoopoe, and the bats, and all winged swarmers. It is unclean unto you. He shall not be eaten. All clean winged fowl you shall eat. You shall not eat any carcass. Unto a stranger which is within your gates you may give, and he shall eat it, or perhaps you shall sell it unto a foreigner, for you are a set apart people unto Yahweh your Allah. You shall not cook a kid of goats in his mother's milk. You shall take the 10th part of all the produce of your seed. Now, let me just comment on this right here. I commented on this in the past. The Talmudic literature, this is where you hear with kosher that you can't have cheese with meat. And that's the big debate here. Talmudic literature will define and say a kid of goats in his mother's milk is the cheese with the meat. Honestly, I'm being dead serious here where I could go either way. I am of the opinion that it's literally saying not to cook a kid, a baby goat, in the milk of its mother. That's how we're to define that. I feel like if you were saying, don't mix cheese with meat, you would say that. I just want the truth, right? I just want whatever the truth is. And when you read the Aramaic Targum, which I quote from repeatedly, it says no cheese on meat. And that is the one thing where I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I think it's okay to have cheese on meat. I'm willing to be wrong. And if I'm found to be in error, I will stop eating cheese on meat. I just think it's, he would have to be more straightforward. It seems to me a kid of goats. You will take the 10th part of all the produce of your seed, which comes forth of the field year by year, and you have eaten to the face of Yahweh your Allah the standing place which he shall select for dwelling his name there. The 10th part of your corn, your new wine, and your fresh oil, and your firstlings of your cattle and your flocks, for the purpose and intent that you may learn to reverently fear Yahweh your Allah all the days. If the way be too great on your account, if you are not able to bear him up, if the dwelling place which Yahweh your Allah shall choose to place his name there be too far removed from your situation, when Yahweh your Allah will barak you, or when he will bless you, then you will give it into silver and shall bind the silver up in your hand, and you shall walk toward the dwelling place which Yahweh your Allah shall choose in him. And he will give the silver for all which Nephash shall desire, with oxen and with wine and in intoxicating drink, and in all which your Nephash shall desire. There you go. So you can have that intoxicating drink. It's in the Bible. No matter what the Baptist pastors tell you, this is a strong drink too. This isn't just wine. To the face of Yahweh your Allah, and you will rejoice, you and rejoice, and the Levites which is within your gates. You will not forsake him. You're rejoicing, by the way, with that strong drink. For to him there is no portion and inheritance with you. At the end of 3 years you shall go forth with all your 10th part of the profits in her year, and you shall rest it within your gates. And the Levite shall come, because he lacks to him either portion or inheritance with you, and the stranger and the bereaved of father and the widow which are within your gates, and they will eat for the purpose and intent that Yahweh your Allah will barak you in all the fashioning of your hand which you shall fashion. At the end of 7 years, you will fashion the Shemitah, and this is the direction of the Shemitah. All debt master shall release his hand, which he does lift up with his neighbor. He shall not impel his fellow or his brother, because a Shemitah has been called out unto Yahweh. This is like you've heard of a Shemitah year, the ever living. You may urge the foreigner, and he will exist unto you. However, your hand shall release your brother. When he will exist and end, no needy, oppressed, wretched among you for gifting. He will barak you in the land which Yahweh your Allah gives to you for an inheritance to possess her. You will open wide your hand to him, and lending, you will lend him enough for his need, which he lacks for himself. For Yahweh your Allah did bless or barak you like that which he set in order unto you, and you will lend unto the goyim, but you will not borrow. And you will have dominion over a great many of the goyim, the non-Hebrews, but over you they will not have dominion. So, and well, this will explain this here, but he's gonna say, like, look, if we're coming up on one of these, these Shemitah years, and I see that you know that you're going to be lending them off their debt, and so you're extra harsh on them because you know that you have to obey this law coming up. I'm going to find out, and I'm going to watch and see where your heart is. And this is why the Torah, when we just get into the check off the box list, we completely miss the point. This is to be a transformative document in which we are to take care of the widows, take care of the oppressed. That needs to be on our hearts, and he wants us to go above and beyond. If he will exist among you a needy, oppressed, wretched person from one of your brothers within one of your gates in your land, which Yahweh your Allah shall give unto you, you will not make hard your heart, and you will not shut up your hand from your poor, wretched, oppressed brother. For opening, you will open your hand to him, and lending, you will lend him enough for his need which he lacks to him. Keep watch for yourself. Beware lest he will exist a balayal, worthlessness, plan within your heart to declare, oh, the 7th year is approaching, the year of the Shemitah, and your eyes be evil against your poor, wretch, oppressed brother, and you do not give unto him. Because, of course, you know that, he's about to get off of his debts here real soon. And he will cry out against toward Yahweh, the ever-living. And I'm telling you guys, like, it's always when somebody cries out to him and he hears the injustice, that's where the real trouble begins. That was a problem with Sodom and Gomorrah. He heard the cries of those that were the victims of injustice. And it will exist as sin unto you. Giving, you will give to him, and not have ill will in your heart when you give unto him. For upon this account, this matter, Yahweh your Allah will barak you in all your works of labor, and upon all you let loose your hand. I like that the way Pamela phrases that. Let loose your hand. Just let it. Just you're holding something in there. You just open it up and you give it to him. For the poor, wretched, oppressed shall not cease from the midst of the land. Upon the account I command you, declaring, opening, you will open wide your hand unto your brother, unto the afflicted and to the poor, wretched, oppressed ones in your land. If your brother be sold, and Eberah, a Hebrew man, or perhaps a Hebrew woman, let's see if I can pronounce this, Eberah, and that person will serve you 6 years. Then in the 7th, you shall send him forth from you freed. And if you send him forth freed from you, you shall not send him forth empty handed. Adorning, you will encircle adornment upon him from your flock and from your level place and from your winepress, with that which Yahweh your Allah shall give to him. Man, I wish I had done a whole thing on commentary just on this tonight about, indentured servants and how they're to walk away better than when they started. You need to make this attractive for them. Here in America, like we have this horrid idea of slavery and what happened, whatever happened. And it clearly wasn't this. It clearly was not the Torah. And you have remembered, for you existed a servant in the land of Egypt in Matcharim, and Yahweh your Allah redeemed you. Over that reason, I command you in this matter today, and should it exist, if he will declare toward you, I will not go forth from you, for he loves you and your family. This means that you've taken care of this indentured servant of so well that they love you, and they're like, I can't do better anywhere else. Like, I don't want to serve anybody else. I just want to serve you for the rest of my life. For it is excellent, pleasing, beautiful for him with you. And you have taken an awl or boring instrument and have gifted it through his ear and through the door. Then he will exist unto you a servant for time of long duration. And additionally, in this manner you will fashion for your amath. It shall not seem difficult in your eyes in setting him free from remaining with you, for his worth has been double that of a hireling in serving you for 6 years, and Yahweh your Allah shall barak you in all that you work by labor. All the firstborn which are brought forth in your herd and in your flock, the males, you will set apart unto Yahweh your Allah. You shall not compel the firstling to work, and you shall not shear the firstborn of your flock. To the face of Yahweh your Allah you shall eat them year after year in the standing place which he shall select, you and your household. And if you will exist a blemish in him, whether lame or perhaps blind, any blemish, deformity, you will not sacrifice him unto Yahweh your Allah. You shall eat him within your gates, the clean and the unclean person together, like the gazelle and like the hart. Only his blood you shall not eat. You shall pour him upon the earth like water. Observation of the feast. You shall observe the Kadash of the Abayab, and shall fashion the Pesach, that'd be the Passover lamb, unto Yahweh your Allah. For in the Kadash of the Abayab, Yahweh your Allah caused you to go forth from Mitzrayim by night, and you have sacrificed the Pesach unto Yahweh of the flock and of the herd, in the place of habitation which Yahweh the ever-living shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. You shall not eat fermented bread with him. 7 days you shall eat matzah over him, the bread of affliction, for you came forth with haste from Eretz Mitzrayim, for the purpose and intent that you may call to mind the day you came forth from Mitzrayim all the days of your life. He shall not observe of you fermentation in all your territory for 7 days, and there shall not pass the night any portion of the flesh which you will sacrifice in Arab, in the day until Bakur. You are not able to sacrifice the Pesach within one of your gates, which Yahweh your Allah gives to you. For conditionally, if toward the standing place which Yahweh your Allah shall choose to cause his name to dwell there, you shall sacrifice the Pesach in Arab, like the going of the Shamash during the appointed time you came forth from Mitzrayim. And you have cooked, and you have eaten in the standing place which Yahweh your Allah he shall choose in him. And you have turned your face in the daybreak, and you have walked unto your tents. 6 days you shall eat unfermented bread, and on the 7th day shall exist a gathering together unto Yahweh your Allah. You shall not fashion any malakaha. What is that word there? Again, that's a prescribed work. Okay. No prescribed work on the high Sabbath. Got it. And again, for all of you out there, if you are like, how do I keep the feast? There's a few chapters in the Bible that talk about it. Here's one right here. Just read it, do what it says. Don't really have to overthink it, in my opinion. Just Follow the directions. Give it. Go with your whole heart. Give Yah your whole heart. Don't arrive empty-handed. You shall inscribe, tallying, recounting for yourself 7 Shabbath, 7 Sabbaths. From the piercing of the sickle upon the stalk, you begin to inscribe the number Shabbat, Aha, Shabbat Ayuth. And you have fashioned the feast of Shabbat Ayuth unto Yahweh your Alahaya, a spontaneous free will offering of your hand, which you will give at the rate like Yahweh your Alahaya, he will barak you. And you have been joyful to the face of Yahweh your Alahaya, you and your son and your daughter and your servants, and you and your Amath and the Levites, which is within your gates, and the stranger and the bereaved, the father and the widow, which are in the midst, in the standing place which Yahweh your Alahaya shall select for his name to dwell there. And you have remembered, for you existed a servant in Mitzrayim, and you have guarded and you have fashioned these statutes. The feast of Sukkot, or Ha-Sakath, you shall fashion for yourself 7 days upon gathering and from your level place and from your winepress. And you have been joyful upon the festival, you and your son and your daughter and your servant and your Amath and the Levite and the stranger and the bereaved, the father and the widow, which is within your gates. For 7 days you shall keep a festival, dancing, going around in a circle, being giddy. I'm not going to comment on that tonight, but there it is again, the circle dance. Unto Yahweh your Alahaya in the standing place which Yahweh the ever-living shall choose. For Yahweh your Alahaya, he shall barak you and all your produce and from all fashioned by your hands, and you will exist joyful. You will exist joyful. 3 strokes of the anvil, you will appear all your males before the face of Yahweh your Alahaya in the place of habitation which he will select. In the feast of Matzah, and in the feast of Shabbath, and the feast of Sukkot, and he shall not appear before the face of Yahweh, the ever living, rashly empty-handed, a man like the gift of his hand, according to the barakath of Yahweh your Alahaya, which he gives unto you. Now, I'm wishing, I don't want to be a broken record through this, and I'm always trying to come up with new material for you guys. I do repeat some stuff, but I almost wish I repeated tonight what I was talking about last night when the Fig Tree Generation, when Jim came on, and we were talking about the different cathedrals and the Dome of the Rock and so on and so forth. And this idea that that these cathedrals were built within 20 to 100 miles from where you would live, with anywhere within the said kingdom. And that I believe that these were the places where Yah put his name, that, you would come here to do sacrifices and so on and so forth, your worship. But anyways, I've been through that so many times. So let's talk about observe the blessing and the curse. This really got me excited researching and looking into this today. And this is where we saw in the beginning of Deuteronomy 11, the first word was observe. Observe, behold, or see. You could, Pamela put observe, but you could say behold or see. And the word there in modern Hebrew is R-E-E-H, Riyah. And it's the name of this Torah portion. Now, to the ancient Hebrews, there apparently, and I could be wrong, correct me, Pamela, if I'm wrong, there apparently wasn't a word for obey. The Hebrews understood faithfulness in 2 words, to hear and to observe. Or you could say to hear and to behold. So let me give you, to understand how this plays out. And I would say, in its most simplest terms, faith and faithfulness. To hear, faith; observe, behold, faithfulness. All right. So let's see how hearing plays out. It's H. Strong's Concordance 8085. It's Shama, to hear. There's also a Shema. And I went through the Bible looking for the different incidents when it came up, and I picked 3 specifically within, I think they're all 3 Genesis. Yeah. To give you different ideas of what it looks like. So here it is in Genesis 3, Bereshit 3, it says, then to Adam, he said, this would be Yahuwah, he says, because you have heeded, that would be listened, Shama, the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat. Cursed is the ground for your sake. There it is. He did not choose the blessing. He chose the curse. How did he choose the curse? By being disobedient. It wasn't the Christian idea of just point to Jesus and you're good. No. That's not how you choose the blessing, because Adam could have done that too. No, he chose the curse by being disobedient. So he, the Shama, he heard, he heeded to listen to the voice of his wife rather than Yahweh. Second example. This comes from Bereshith chapter 11. This is the Tower of Babel chapter. Let us go down and there confound their language. So this is the divine council up there speaking, that they may not understand. So that word right there is listen to. It is shama, that they may not shama one another's speech. So now Yahweh, he wants us to hear him, but he doesn't want them to hear each other's speech. Why? Because they're uniting against him, right? So he doesn't want us to hear the wrong speech. He wants us to hear the right speech. And then here, Bereshith chapter 22, this is spoken to Abraham. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed. Same word, listen to my voice. Isn't it interesting how in the translations you see three different words? Heeded, and these are all King James. Heeded, understand, obeyed. And they take the same Hebrew word and just kind of contextually kind of tweak it a little bit to make, I guess, the most sense in the sentence. So there's a positive listening. That's the only positive listening we have in all of this. As Abraham listened, he obeyed the Father. So Shama, to hear, can indicate physically hearing. We see that, like the Tower of Babel or so on and so forth. But then it can also indicate spiritually hearing, as Abraham was capable of doing. But as it is the case with Adam, there was a physical and a spiritual component to his listening, just as it was with Babel. So there, Adam listened spiritually to the serpents. You see what I'm saying? There's a physicality and a spirituality. You can never separate them, in my opinion. There's the letter of the law, spirit of the law. You can't separate the two. There's the exoteric, esoteric. And so likewise, to see or observe, behold, our Torah portion, is not simply physically seeing. Okay, it's not just physically looking out there and seeing the land. We can't do that. I mean, we could, go travel to Israel. We can look at the news, but we're talking about the one that Abraham looked for. We're looking for a land that we cannot physically see with our eyes. So it indicates the same sort of hearing that relates to the mind's eye, the third eye, to see or observe, behold. This is where faith, the things that unseen, you have faith and faithfulness in the things the unseen, but you see and observe and hear them. That only comes a result of hearing, and that is through faith believing. Are you guys following? I hope you guys are all following. You cannot see the vision if you do not believe in it. It could be right in front of you. This is the amazing thing about the spiritual world. It could be right in front of your face, and it's just total darkness. You don't see anything. It is the faithful follow through in which one can grasp reality in its fullest sense. Now, why am I showing you this here? Mary Magdalene and the mandala, she, as I pointed out, in New Testament terms, she basically taught, how to enter into that hearing and seeing through the mandala. And so we see this here. I knew, you guys know, I have to take this back to the cathedrals. I'm in love with cathedrals. And these rose windows, wherever the pilgrim for Sukkot enters these cathedrals that are near to him, he passes right through this rose window, this mandala. And of course, I've said this a lot, but a mandala is, the rose window is like a third eye, right? It's a sacred space. It's inviting you into this where you can hear and observe spiritually. And in this space, it's where, great spiritual things can be accomplished. It's like the macroverse entering the microverse and then expanding back out to the macroverse again. So here's a passage from James, Yaakov, chapter 1, and he says this: "Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath." So what happens if you're swift to hear? "For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of Elohim. Wherefore lay apart all filthiness," because apparently filthiness still exists, and superfluidity of naughtiness. I always love that line. Superfluidity of naughtiness. Don't be that. And receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. And here it is, the observe part. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only. Because if you're a hearer only, you're just physically hearing. You don't have that spiritual hearing, deceiving your own selves. For if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. Now, I've pointed out before in the Hebrew, James, he actually talks about the women that would be in front of the wilderness tabernacle and supposedly the temple as well. Clearly the temple in his day, and they would have the washing bins there, and you would clean yourself there and you would see your reflection. So it's the idea that you just go and become filthy again. For he beholdeth himself and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. But whoso looketh into the perfect, that should say Torah of liberty. I put tall there. I think I took law and I put a T there, T for Torah. But whoso looketh into the perfect Torah of liberty and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deeds. So for those of you who may not know, like, what is the Torah of liberty? I thought the Torah was a curse. Well, the Torah is either a blessing or a curse. You got to choose either one. If you can't just free yourself from it to have liberty. Whoever walks the way, the path of Yahuwah, he is walking in liberty. All right. And it is a curse to you if you are in sin, in your transgression underneath the Torah. That is why if you walk the perfect Torah of liberty, you are blessed. All right. So the next passage, Deuteronomy 6:4. I'm not going to read the whole thing for lack of time, but you see her here, Shama, O Yasharel, Yahuwah our Elohim is one Lord, or Adonai, or I guess Yahuwah. All right, Deuteronomy 11:13. Here's another example of Shama. And it shall come to pass, if ye shall Shama, or hearken diligently unto my commandments. Right? So you listen and observe, behold. So the blessing and the curse is both physical and spiritual. It is intended for the here and now as well as eternity. There is a blessing and a curse in eternity, which I'm about to turn to, just as there is in this life. And I've given examples of that. And I think we all could. I think I gave a testimony tonight, showed one, and I hope each of you will send in your testimonies and just show us how your life has been changed by being obedient. Why are people so afraid of this? People try to shut down the conversation all the time. They don't want to hear about how our lives get better. Because they don't want to have to force themselves to improve. They want to live in their doctrine of what they espouse, that they're just a filthy rag and a dog returning to their vomits, and they want to live that life, and they don't want to hear about people improving upon it. No, you can choose the blessing. And as my wife, Mrs. Hadley, will say, love your future self. How do you love your future self? Think about eternity. Think about how you want to be blessed in eternity. And those decisions happen now. So you're not going to get the result of it necessarily right now. Maybe it'll happen 50 years from now when you're dead, when you enter the next life and you receive your rewards. So this comes from none other than Yahushua HaMashiach. And he says this, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all the nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. And here's the beautiful part. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come ye blessed. There it is, blessing with a curse. Come ye, the Torah is still enacted. The way of Yahuwah. Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And I put a note here. Notice how he doesn't say prepared for the devil and his angels. Let me read this again. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you, not for the devil and his angels. Why did I say that? Well, look what he says right down here. Verse 41. Then he shall say unto them on the left, depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. Note, it wasn't prepared for you. So he prepares this fire for the devils and his angels. but he prepares the kingdom from the foundation of the world, not for the devil and his angels. Now, where am I going with this? You guys have heard me talk a lot about pre-existence and how we are bastard sons of Elohim, sons of Elohim, here to reclaim our status, and how this is all a test, and we are here to see if we are going to be obedient. And there's all these controllers, all these spiritual controllers and handlers here to tell us not to be obedient. They have come up with all these doctrines to say whatever it says in the Bible to do, don't do that because that will displease God. And it was really occurring to me recently in the last couple of weeks that this is just a hunch. It is a thought. I'm not saying thus saith the Lord. This is just something that Noel's saying, that we are the fallen angels. That if we are here on this earth, we are living this life, we are getting our second chance. That we were deceived by Satan in the former existence. The 30%, the 33 that fell, that's us. It really occurred to me. So it's basically like we were getting the ultimatum. You can remain with Satan and his angels. You can be thrust into the flames, or you can walk out this life and redeem yourself and show that you are worthy to enter eternity by your life choices. And of course, Satan, the great liberator, whatever the promise was beforehand that caused everyone to rebel, he has shown his true colors. Of course, there's 5 Satans. That's a whole different discussion. He or they have shown their true colors, and the fact that they don't want us to be redeemed. They don't want us to make it. And so they're here to stop us however possible. Well, let's keep reading. That was Matthew. Oh, I didn't put what chapter that was. Well, here's Matthew chapter 5. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain. This is Yahushua HaMashiach. And when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Here's the blessing and the curse. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. If you guys are not noticing, our Messiah is teaching the Torah. Isn't he amazing? I mean, I'm not even comparing. I pale in comparison. Like, nobody can teach like this. This guy is opening up the Torah, and this is how he's interpreting it. Amazing. There's nobody else on earth who ever did this. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see Elohim. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of Elohim. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This here highlighted is probably, if you are in this Torah walk with me, every single one of you, this is your life story right here. This is your biography. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for what? For my sake. And you can even say for my name's sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. Remember, love your future self. You're not here for rewards now. You're going for the prize. You're training for, the trophy stand. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. And again, it's like the same people that are attacking you for your walk, they're the same people who they will say they're on the prophet side. No, they're the same people that would persecute the prophets. If they are persecuting you for following the Torah, they would have persecuted them too. No ifs, ands, or buts. They can fool themselves all they want. They are not on Yah's side. All right, and then we skip to the curses. So now we see the blessings. Here's the curses. Jumping to Matthew chapter 23. Then spake Yahushua to the multitude and to the disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moshe's seats. Now, if you don't know what this is, Moshe's seat is basically what I'm doing right now. Okay, I am sitting for you guys in Moshe's seat. I am reading for you the Torah. Moshe wrote 5 books of the Bible. We are going through them: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So if you sit on a Sabbath and you sit in Moses' seat, you open up the Torah and you read it. All right. So he's saying the scribes and Pharisees, they read to you the Torah. Now here's the catch. All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, there's that word observe, that observe and do. What? So he's saying, listen to the Pharisees. When they sit in Moses' seat and they read to you Moses, do everything that they say to do. But do not ye after their works. What? For they say and do not. So he's saying that this is his whole criticism. Christianity says, I was raised to say that, the reason he criticized the Pharisees because they were too zealous. They took it too seriously. They were legalistic. You like, don't be like the Pharisees. Don't take it seriously. Don't do that, because if you do any of those, if you obey any of those commands, it's work. And now you're spitting on the cross. You see how it's like, no. He's saying, listen to what they say and do what they tell you to do, but they actually break the Torah. So don't commit their works. Don't commit the works of the people that are breaking the Torah. Guys, this isn't rocket science. This is so obvious. And how is it that we went through our whole lives and missed this? It has to be a spiritual blindness. Okay. So, and then he says this right here. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees. Now, this is going to tie into what we read here in Matthew 5, that those who persecute you are the same ones that persecuted the prophets for his name's sake, for being obedient to him, for choosing the blessing. They hate that you choose the blessing. This goes back to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 1. I read this last week. They persecute you because they don't want you to receive the reward that they're not willing to get. They don't choose the blessing, so they want to stop you from getting the blessing. This is the spirit of Azazel. All right. So right here, but woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees. And Matthew 23 is the famous the woe chapter. Hypocrites, for ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. So the whole point here is that the Pharisees are people that are trying to stop you from being obedient to Yah and obeying his commands. They're not interested in going into the kingdom. So they're literally the gatekeepers. They are standing there sending you to the gateway to hell, down the highway to hell. They do not want you to enter the kingdom. Be wary of these people. Don't let you need, if I have done my job here, it is to tell you, to convince you that you have the authority, the spiritual authority over your own life. Okay. You do not need to listen to the controllers that are here, the terrors that are trying to keep you down. It is up to you. It is up to no one else. It's not up to me. It's not up to anyone else. It's up to you to follow the way of Yahweh and not show up empty-handed. All right. And I would also say the more that you get attacked by these Pharisees, these terrors, the Christian Pharisees, I'll call them the Christian Pharisees, the Christian Talmud, you know you're doing something right. The more you get attacked, the more you're probably going on the right path. They want to pull you off. I went over this last week, but somebody needs to see this again. The Torah is Yahweh's character. And you could see where the Torah is described. They give you all over here on the right New Testament passages. Well, there's one Psalms there. There's one Proverbs. Oh, there's a few Psalms, whatever. There's a lot of New Testament, particularly in Romans. And they describe the Torah as good, holy, just, truth, perfect, not burdensome. People say that the Torah is burdensome. That's actually not true at all. It's only burdensome if you enjoy sin. I mean, let's be honest. Some people tell me I need to take it down a notch, but guys, this is the Bible, baby. I mean, this is just me talking about the Bible. Like this excites me. I get really excited going through this. It's not burdensome. It's light, love, righteous, pure, spiritual. What else is it? Unchangeable and eternal. And you could see this is all Yahweh's character. And of course, he's unchanging. We see what Yahushua HaMashiach says. He said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes into the Father but by me. A lot of the Torah haters have stopped using this verse because they've learned what the way, the truth, and the life is. It is the way is, according to Psalms 119, blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the Torah of Yahweh, or the truth. Your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and your Torah is the truth. And of course, the Torah is also the life. We see this in Deuteronomy chapter 32. For it is not a vain thing for you because it is your life, the Torah. And so when Yahushua HaMashiach says that he is the way and the truth and the life, he is saying, I am the word. I am the word that you read. And when Moshe wrote of me, I am that word. I am the way, the truth, and life. I am the Torah, the Torah, the Torah. Choose me. Proverbs 6:23 says, for the commandment is a lamp. There's that light. And the Torah is the light. And reproofs of instruction are the way of life. And you can see the way, the truth, and life in there right there. It's all right there. The way, the life. I guess it doesn't say truth. You could say the light, the way, and the life. Gospel of John, chapter 8 says this. I speak that which I have seen with my Father, and you do that which you have seen with your father. So there's two fathers, right? Father in heaven and the father of lies. They answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. And Yahushua said to them, if ye were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. All right, well, let's keep moving on. Those are great passages, but all right, let's talk about Deuteronomy 13 and duality. Now, I'm going to quickly say with Deuteronomy, the 13 test, for those of you who are anti-Paul, who still listen to me, look, I understand. I get it. Like if you feel that he needs to not be adhered to because you feel that he fails a Deuteronomy 13 test, he doesn't have the fruit or whatever, I don't fault you for that. All right. And I get it. I really do. I used to be there, and I really believe that the historical Paul was Torah observant. And what I'm going to be talking about right now, instead of going through the Deuteronomy 13 test, look, everyone just take the Deuteronomy 13 test and line it up with any teacher, anyone out there, anyone who claims to be a prophet. Do they pass the test? Are they telling you to eat unclean animals? Are they telling you to break the Sabbath? Are they telling you X, Y, Z? Just go, the 613, the 10 commandments, the 613. Are they telling you to break this? If they are, they're leading you towards another Allah. It's very simple. Well, there's a lot of duality in scripture, and I want to talk about the duality of Paul. So first, before I get there, let me talk about the duality of Moshe. And I've pointed this out in the past. The duality of Moshe was Balaam. And just to read this highlighted part here, this comes from the Legends of the Jews. It says, Moses exhorted his people to keep from sin, whereas Balaam counseled the nations to give up their moral course of life and to become addicted to lewdness. And now a lot of people say Paul was Balaam, right? Balaam was also different from the Israelite prophet in his cruelty. They had such pity for the nations that misfortune among the heathens caused them suffering sorrow, whereas Balaam was so cruel that he wanted to destroy an entire nation without any cause. So but they're making a whole case here that's saying that just like with a checkerboard here, the black and the white squares, you had Moses on one end, Balaam was if Moses was the light, Balaam is the polar opposite, darkness, right? That's the duality. They were perfect opposites confronting each other. Let's look at the next example. Oh, let's finish this here. It said God gave them Balaam as a prophet, who in no way was inferior to Moses, either in wisdom or in the gift of prophecy. So isn't that interesting? He was a prophet. He prophesied correctly. He gave the Balaam star prophecy that the wise men later followed. Moses, and remember, that's the Deuteronomy 13 test. A true prophet versus a false prophet is, are you leading people towards righteousness? That's a true prophet, not whether or not you predict the weather properly. Anyways, Moses was indeed the greatest prophet among the Israelites, but Balaam was his peer among the heathens. So perfect balance right there. All right. Now let's look at the duality of Yahushua HaMashiach. Yes, I'm going there right now. Versus who? Barabbas. This comes from, I didn't put a chapter and verse here. Well, this comes from the book of the Illuminators, which we have in our store. Some of you also know it as the book of the Nazarene. And it says, now many people believe there would be two kinds of deliverers, two messiahs. You know what's fascinating about that quote right there is that there is now archaeological evidence coming out, people finding documents in the Qumran area that actually, the first century, they actually believed that there would be two separate messiahs. They were looking for two messiahs. So this book here, which ended up in England, it is 100% correct in that statement. And I actually want to give a whole presentation on that. I haven't gotten to it yet. I have, a whole stack of things to do. Anyway, so they were looking, one of the deliverers was, according to them, was a man named Yosef Baraban and had many followers. I think this is Barabbas. I can't prove that, but I think this is Barabbas. Yahusha met him at a house in Bethgal and said, this is an awesome scene. Why do you declare things which stir up the people? So Yahusha is approaching Barabbas, to which the other replied, what concern is it of yours? Like he says, like, what is this your business? I can do whatever I want, right? Who are you to judge me? And Yahusha answered him after this manner. Several men were sitting in a boat, and one began boring a hole beneath his seat. Seeing this, his companion said, what are you doing here? And he answered, what concern is it of yours what I do beneath my own seat? And they replied, surely it is our fare when what you do will swamp the boat, and we will be all thrown into the water. The great thing about this story, it never shows Barabbas's reply. He was like, he had no reply. Well, and then we see Barabbas as the Azazel goat. Now you see the story here. I'm not going to read this again for lack of time. Famous story. Pontius Pilate gets up there. It's Passover. And of course, on the Day of Atonement, you would have the Azazel goat. That all a sin is ascribed to Azazel. It seems like that's what happened here. If I'm getting this right, the Barabbas was the Azazel goat, that he was released. And they even state that when the Jews then answered all the people and said, his blood be on us and our children. So they have taken on the sin ascribed to Azazel there, and in making Yahushua HaMashiach their lamb. And that comes from Matthew 27. All right, so we see here that there is a duality, a kind of polar opposites: Moshe, Balaam, Yahusha, Barabbas. Right, he was the other Messiah contender that ended up being the Azazel goat. And then we see Paul versus Simon Magus. So I'm going to, I think, read most of this, and this comes from Acts of Peter or Acts of Kepha. And so many in the anti-Paul camp. Again, I don't want you guys think that I'm coming down on you. I mean, you have your convictions, I have mine. But I see often that many try to make the case that Paul is literally Simon Magus. I've seen this. Now, a lot are going to deny this, but I've literally tried to make the case that he really is Simon Magus, and that even though they're standing in the room at the same time in the book of Acts, it really is the same person. And I obviously don't agree with that. So let's read what it says here. This is from chapter 4 of Acts of Kepha. Now, after a few days, there was a great commotion in the midst of the church, for some said that they had seen wonderful works done by a certain man whose name was Simon. This is Simon Magus. And that he was at Arisha. And they added further that he said he was a great power of Elohim, and without Elohim, he did nothing. So this great wizard, this great prophet who did amazing works, and he was he actually had a statue put up in his honor in Rome. We know this because Justin Martyr in the 2nd century, he was like, can we remove that statue? It's so embarrassing. Like, can we please get rid of the statue? So in the 2nd century, the statue to Simon Magus was still there. Interestingly enough, it has been scrubbed from history. Where does it say that in the history books? It was there. I mean, he was a true false prophet. Now, going down here, it says, and the brethren were not a little offended among themselves, seeing moreover that Paul was not at Rome, neither Timothy nor Barnaby. That would be Bartholomew. No, it's Barnabas, excuse me. For they had been sent out into Macedonia by Paul, and that there was no man to comfort us, to speak nothing of them that had but just become catechumens. And as Simon exalted himself yet more by the works which he did, and many of them daily called Paul a sorcerer. Whoa. And others a deceiver. Whoa. Do you know what's happening right now? Of so great a multitude that had been established in the faith, all fell away. All right. I have given my case as to why, when you read the book of Acts, the narrative arch there is that the book of Acts is about testimony, true testimony versus false testimony. and how Stephen was stoned based on false testimony. He gave a true testimony, but the Jews said that he did away with the Torah, and they stoned him for that. That's the false testimony. The awkward part is that Christianity has to go, yeah, he did do it with the Torah. We don't like that he was stoned, but according to Deuteronomy 13, he should have been stoned. They said the same thing about Paul. Paul's going around saying, no, I am keeping the Torah. I am not leading people away. And the Jews are saying he is doing away with it, right? The same thing just happened here. Now the followers of Simon Magus are all falling away, and they're turning it now, and they're saying Paul is the sorcerer. He is the deceiver. You see what I'm saying? So now they're falling in line with the Jews. They're all going after this guy. And I have pointed out that, again, everyone is free to their convictions. If you feel he breaks Deuteronomy 13 test. But I'm of the opinion that the very Paul that is the lawless one, that is the false testimony of the Jews and Simon Magus. All right, let's keep reading. We move forward. This comes from Acts of Kepha and Paul. So quickly, Paul leaves, Barnabas leaves, Timothy leaves, and then Simon Magus moves in, and he just devastates the Church of Rome. And they all turn to him. They turn away from the Torah. They turn to Simon Magus. So then we see the scene, Paul versus Simon Magus. And this comes from the Acts of Kepha and Paul. And they're standing before Emperor Nero at this time. And of course, Nero is going to be the one that's going to put Paul to death and Peter to death. And when Nero said, tomorrow we'll prove it to you, turning to Paul, he said, so Nero's looking at Paul, and he's very unimpressed. And he says, you, Paul, why do you say nothing? I should give the context that Simon Magus is there with Peter and Paul in front of Nero. And Nero really likes Simon Magus. Either who taught you, or whom you have for a master, or how you have taught in the cities, or what things have happened through your teachings. For I think that you have not any wisdom, he's saying this to Paul, and are not able to accomplish any works of power. Now there's a ... there. I skipped a few just for sake of time. And Simon Magus says this, "O good emperor, you take notice that these two, Peter and Paul, have conspired against me, for I am the truth, and they purpose evil against me." And then Kepha said, "There is no truth in you, but all you say is false." And Nero's not impressed by this. And he says, "Paul, what do you say?" And Paul said, this is really interesting, "Those things which you have heard from Kepha, believe to have been spoken by me also. For we purpose the same thing, for we have the same Adonai, Yahushua HaMashiach." So through this whole thing, Paul is keeping silent, and he's just deferring to Kepha. He's like, whatever Kepha says, that's the truth. I agree with everything Kepha is saying here. And so here's the end of Simon Magus right here. Now, why did they go to Rome? Kepha goes to Rome to confront Simon Magus, because Simon Magus is turning away so many people from the faith. He's actually enacting Deuteronomy 13 in a way. He's saying, I'm going to confront this false prophet. I'm going to bring an end to him. And this is where I stated that if Paul historically were anti-Torah and he were leading people away from the Torah, then all of the apostles failed in going through with Deuteronomy, with the Deuteronomy 13 test, which is stoning him, because assuredly that's what the Jews were trying. We have multiple accounts in Acts where they were trying to stone him to death. They were dragging him out and stoning him. If that is confusion to you, that's why, because they're enacting Deuteronomy 13. And meanwhile, the apostles are like, hiding, and not, it's like, no, they should have joined them and go, you're right, this guy is breaking the Torah. We will join you. We will put this guy down. They never do. That is testimony to me. Either the apostles are breaking the Torah, or they are not agreeing with the Jews and going, no, you guys are deceivers and you're lying, which is what the Jews were actually doing. The Pharisees, they were a wicked crew of people. So anyways, this is the ending of Simon Magus. And Simon said, "In order that you may know, O Emperor Nero, that these are deceivers, as soon as ever I ascend into heaven, I will send my angels to you and will make you come to me." So Simon Magus is about to fly on his broom or whatever, kind of like the Wicked Witch of the West. And Nero said, "Do at once what you say." Then Simon went up upon the tower in the face of all, and crowned with laurels. That's interesting. He has laurel wreaths on him for Apollo worship. He stretched forth his hands and began to fly. And when Nero saw him flying, he said to Kepha, "This Simon is true, but you and Paul are deceivers," because Paul and Kepha did not fly, of course. To whom Kepha said, "Immediately shall you know that we are true disciples of Mashiach." But he is not Mashiach, as he claims, but a magician and a malefactor. Nero said, "Do you still persist? Behold, you see him going up into heaven." And then Kepha, looking steadfastly upon Paul, said, "Paul, look up and see." And Paul, having looked up, full of tears, and seeing Simon flying, said, "Kepha, why are you idle? Finish what you have begun, for already our Adonai Yahushua HaMashiach is calling us." And Nero, hearing them, smiled a little and said, "These men see themselves worsted already and are gone mad." And Kepha said, "Now you shall know that we are not mad." And Paul said to Kepha, "Do at once what you do." So it's really interesting in this account how you have Paul just constantly deferring to Peter as the authority. And according to these books, these are two separate books I'm reading from, cross-referencing. According to these two books, again, it's not the picture of Paul that we are constantly told that, he went off like a rogue agent and did his own thing and, forget the other apostles. I'm the superior. Like, no, he's like saying, Peter, you're the man, you're in charge. You're the man. You are the rock. And Kepha, looking steadfastly against Simon, said, "I adjure you, you angels of Satan, who are carrying him into the air to deceive the hearts of the unbelievers by the Elohim that created all things, and by Yahushua HaMashiach, whom on the third day he raised from the dead, no longer from this hour to keep him up, but to let him go." And immediately being let go, he fell into a place called Sacra Via, that is, Holy Way, and was divided into 4 parts, having perished by an evil fate. Then Nero ordered Kepha and Paul to be put in irons, and the body of Simon to be carefully kept for 3 days, thinking that he would rise on the 3rd day. To whom Kepha said, "He will no longer rise, since he is truly dead, being condemned to everlasting punishment." And of course, then Kepha and Paul go to their similar fates. All right. I'm not going to go through all this tonight. I've been over this before. We're just going to skip this. I've given presentations on this. If I'm in the mood again in the future, I'll do it, because this needs to be heard, of course, that clearly Kepha's vision of the animals was not about eating unclean animals. It was always about people. And I will remind everybody that if you're in the 1st century and you're hearing these rumors of a vision that Peter had, like, this isn't in writing, guys. Like, it gets put in writing in Acts, but it's like, where is this actually in writing as a law? This is a vision he had. It is not doing away with the Torah. It is not saying you can eat pig. It's very clearly telling you that we actually saw this tonight in Deuteronomy. It said you eating with clean and unclean people together. It's not saying eat unclean food. It's saying whether a person is clean or unclean, you can eat with them. That's the lesson that Peter had to learn. He was going by Talmudic tradition, not by the Torah. And of course, you see here in 1 Maccabees chapter 1, what was the abomination that caused desolation? It was throwing a pig on the barbecue. Apparently, I say this time and again, apparently if there's a temple now, the Illuminati play their Antichrist card and roll him out. If he throws a pig on the barbecue, there's going to be a lot of religious people out there going, well, dang, I guess that's okay. Not a big deal, really, because we've done away with it. So clearly, this is the man of lawlessness, but, some of the lawlessness is okay. All right. So let's skip all this for lack of time. All right. Sea serpents, clean animals. Are they clean animals? I thought this was kind of exciting, this little segment here. And what I'm showing you here is an illustration from the book, Mythical Monsters, Dragons, Sea Serpents, Unicorns, Fact or Fiction by Charles Gould. Charles Gould was a very, very impressive researcher in the 19th century. We have published his book. This guy, this is pre-internet, right? He's got to go around to different libraries and actually search out these newspaper articles. Very, very well done research. Very thankful for this guy. And so this is a Norwegian sea serpents here. Some interesting thing about sea serpents is that they were attracted to cold waters, which seems to go against the whole reptilian kind of idea. A lot of them up in the Norwegian, kind of around Sweden, Norway, that area there. It usually was in summertime. So it was warmer weather, but it was when the water was calm. It had to be like just crystal clear type of, just not wavy. They don't seem to like choppy water. Report after report after report from all these different party members who are not related to each other all said the same things. So this one here, it says that it describes when they see it, according to this illustration here that they sketched out. It said that it appeared to them, this mammal, this marine animal that came up with the help of two fins on the forepart of the body nearest the head, which they judged from the boiling of the water on both sides of it. Now, that should ring some bells right there. The boiling of water. This sea serpent's coming up, and there's something hot coming out of it that's boiling the water. But there's the two fins right there. And a lot of these reports, and I know that this was on a lot of people's minds. You see a sea serpent out there, and you're like, what? And you're watching it. Some of these people would watch them for like 20 minutes, and they would be way out there. But they would look, does it have fins? Does it have, because they're all wondering if it's kosher, right? They're all wondering. They know their Bible. They're like, does it have fins? And a lot of them said, we looked for fins. We didn't see them, but we do have reports where they said, yes, we saw the fins. It has fins. And then there's this one here. And those look like big old fins to me. This is the sea serpent of south coast of Greenland, another very cold water creature. And it said right there, its body was covered with scales. So scales, fins. Now, there could be some species of sea serpents out there that are unclean, that maybe they have scales, no fins, or fins, no scales. But it appears that we have sea serpents that had fins and scales. So that would make it a clean animal, which means you could eat it, which is interesting because in Psalm 74, it says, thou broke the head of Leviathan in pieces and gave him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. You guys know, I think that's a reference there to the hidden wilderness, the blessed land, that the people, the resurrected people in the second Exodus who went into the greater realm on this earth, a material place on this realm, in the greater realm, they were given Leviathan to eat. And the Leviathan being eaten is a sign of the millennial kingdom. It's what they would call back then the future world to come. So what's interesting is that when you get to the other end of the millennial kingdom and you get into the Reformation and Renaissance, you see all these illustrations of sea serpents, and they're like just scientific. They're on the earth, and people are just saying they see them. And I kind of wonder if these sea serpents are they're the residue of the kingdom. They went away eventually. They're gone. I mean, I think the last one that was spotted was like off Boston in like the 1970s. So it was rather recently, but it was in the 1800s when like the major reports where you had a lot of civilians going out there in these steamships and they were seeing them. As soon as they introduced the engine onto these ships, they all disappeared. So I don't know if they're all dead or if they went up to migrated to the greater part of the realm or what's going on. But it's just interesting that as soon as the curtain comes up, millennial kingdom's over, we enter the little season, they're everywhere. You know what I mean by everywhere. People are seeing them. There's a lot of reports of them. So this comes from, what book is this? This is the Bava Batra. I'm going to read you a little bit of Talmudic literature tonight. Don't stone me to death for this or throw tomatoes at me, but this is what they say. When the Leviathan is hungry, he produces breath from his mouth and thereby boils all the waters in the depths of the sea. So that's kind of interesting because they're talking there. And it says, as it is stated, they're commenting on Job 41. He makes the deep boil like a pot. And that's what we saw in that one account with the sea serpent. They saw the boiling water around him. Isn't that interesting? And then it says, Rabbah says that Rabbi Yohanan says, in the future world is the millennial kingdom, the Holy One, blessed be he, will make a feast for the righteous from the flesh of the Leviathan, as it is stated. And so we know that it has to be clean for that to happen. The Habarim will make a feast of him. And Kara means, okay. There's a few interesting things here. They talk about, well, there's interesting stuff on here, but all right, I don't need to read all that. All right, let's keep moving on. All right. Clean, unclean, and anthropomorphism. If you saw or read my Lady and the Unicorn piece, which was the last recent paper I came out with, it really excited me. It was a big, like 50-page report, very in-depth. I talk in here about the Barnabas, the Epistle of Barnabas, and how he literally goes through what we saw in Deuteronomy here, the same passage. And he's saying, okay, you heard Moshe say this in the Torah, like you don't eat these animals and you do eat these animals. What's really interesting about this is that Barnabas understood that there is the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. He's saying here, look, keep the letter of the law. He is not saying in here to eat unclean animals. Modern translators try to eschew it into that, but that is not what he's saying. let me actually read the line here. He said, verse 9, so Moshe spoke of these teachings about food in a spiritual sense, but the people, in accordance with the lust of their flesh, receive them as being only about eating. He's not saying that it's not material as well. It's also spiritual. And so, you don't want to eat a weasel because they do forbidden things. I won't go through all this. But it is interesting that these unclean animals have these human characteristics. For example, I'll give you like a vulture or a buzzard or a hawk or a kite. They basically are like murderers, or they're like thieves, right? And we can go through the Psalms and Proverbs how you don't associate, you don't be in the company of murderers, of thieves, you will end up in their lot, right? You want to shun these. And they come down and they take the carcasses off the ground and that kind of stuff. And so it's just interesting to see the spiritual component. And so speaking of anthropomorphism, if you don't know what that is, it's the idea that human characteristics are attached to animals. Now, that's just a common nowadays. You go see like any Pixar film or CG film or Curious George or whatever, right? Like they're all given human characteristics. We don't even think twice about it. Well, a paper I came out with several years ago on anthropomorphism, it's very outdated now. It's embarrassing. I don't want to read it to you guys until I update it. I basically went through and showed how anthropomorphism took off with Darwinian evolution. Now, there's nothing wrong with it because we know that it goes back to Barnabas got it right, and I showed you all through the Lady and the Unicorn. And we got Aesop's fable, but what's really interesting is when Darwinian evolution took off in the 1800s, all of a sudden it just exploded everywhere because there was an agenda to have us revert back to our animal ways and have animals teach our children what it is like to be human, which is very, very different than having animals in Aesop's fables that are morality lessons or like in Barnabas. But think about it, because we now set our children in front of television and have animals teach them what it is to be human. How very evolutionary. Just think about the fallout of that. Of course, we have John Tennell down here. Fun fact, I actually got to see the dodo of Oxford. I used to be obsessed with dodos as a child, so that was a big moment. And of course, this is one of my favorite illustrations. I don't know if Little Red Riding Hood is the best idea or best example of anthropomorphism, but I have to admit that's one of my favorite illustrations of all time. I find it so haunting. I love it, like where the wolf there is just rubbing up against her in the woods. Just very haunting, beautiful illustration. But then we see it coming up in the 1800s as well in political cartoons, like an octopus, right? An octopus could be like a monopoly or, government tyranny, these kind of things. Here's the Standard Oil companies having their nasty tentacles and everything where it shouldn't be. And of course, I don't even know what's going on with the context in this one. You see Russia, and I think that's Britain, and there's Germany, the eagle, and I guess China there is the dragon, and so on and so forth. But they're, putting animal characteristics on different governments. Kind of interesting. And then if you paid attention to the spiritual association with the unicorn, and the naturalist says this about the unicorn, that it is in size small as a kid. The unicorn of the millennial kingdom was the size of a goat, if you need that spelled out for you, not the big horses we see nowadays. They were like My Little Pony size, perfect for ladies to put them in their purse for every occasion, for every outfit. But that it has a fierce bestial nature and one horn on its head. It is impossible for hunters to capture in the usual way, though I shall tell how they do catch one. By the way, this book I'm reading you from is a 2nd century read. Some people kind of wonder if actually Barnabas actually wrote this. By the way, it's a Christian text. They place a chaste virgin in its path. The unicorn goes to the virgin's bosom. She warms the unicorn and then leads it to the king's palace. And this is, of course, a picture of Yahushua HaMashiach. I would just recommend going and checking that out for yourself. All right, this is what I wanted to get to last week, and I am making it tonight. This is so exciting. I got like 7 minutes left, and I'm making. All right. Last week, we looked at the manna, and in the Lady and the Unicorn, I ended it with these beautiful tapestries, which I have personally seen in France. It was one of the greatest moments to do a 360 in that room and just look around at these massive tapestries. Back then, I didn't even know what the Millennial Kingdom research was. I just, was really big on medieval. And the thing about these tapestries is that they are made by women, by weavers. And there's a lot of very important spiritual implications to that. And you see that these women, whenever the men weren't really big on the whole Lady and the Unicorn thing, but the women were. And they made a lot of these beautiful tapestries. But in this one specifically here, of course, we see the line of Judah. And anytime we see the unicorn with the line, it is for Ephraim. We see that all through Scotland and Britain, the lion and the unicorn coming together, Yehuda no longer vexing Ephraim and vice versa. We see the crescent moon there, which, I have a theory. It's a thesis that could be a reference to the what Paul calls the wilderness, the hidden wilderness, the blessed land that is the light of Yahushua HaMashiach outside the circuit of the sun and the moon. And of course, we see the two pillars here, like Freemasonry. The idea is that she is the tree of life. This is the pathway right here to eternity. It is the way that you walk to enter the land. And this scene does take place in paradise. So some interesting things going on. But look at what she's got her hand in there. She's dipping into a kind of what we would call a big old grail type of thing. But look at those little wafer things. And I asked the question, what is that? Is this communion? It can't be communion because according to Roman Catholicism, a girl can't give communion. Okay. It's not officially communion. It has to be a priest. So this girl is offering this goblet to her with these little communion wafers. And I am suggesting very possibly that this could be the manna that we were looking for. And in fact, the tradition of even a lot of this, unleavened bread, these communion wafers, whatever you want to call it, coming in by our controllers could be from the manna that we saw in the Millennial Kingdom. All right. Well, I started looking more into this, and I don't need to go over all this research I've gone. You guys all know, if you've been following me, about the manna, how it would taste like whatever you wanted it to taste like. We have multiple sources on this. And also that comes from the Christian and the Jewish tradition. I love it when you get both worldviews. And also that if you were not a sinner, you would not poop. It would just go dissolve in your body. All right. So going into these octagonal shapes. And if you listened to last night when I had a Fig Tree Generation on, and we were talking with Jim, and we were talking about the Dome of the Rock and other things like that, we see these buildings all over the world, these octagonal shape, these circular shapes. They could be bandstands, they could be towers, they could be baptistries. And of course, my belief is that they were not actually baptistries. They held some sort of maybe kind of engine in there that kind of worked with the magnetic field, that kind of worked with the ether and bring down energy and so on and so forth. And here's some pictures here of the actual engines. That very few pictures that survive, but you actually see people standing around these engines in these towers, or maybe they're removing them, but they're all in these pictures. So we know that they held something at one time. All right. So then let me see, because I always forget how to pronounce this, but it's called the reliquary. And these are these odd decorative pieces that come out of the medieval era. And they're very mysterious. And so our controllers today, they're like, well, they made these very exotic looking, things to hold like a fingernail or something. Like they'll find like the finger of Yaakov, the brother of Yochanan, and they'll put it in there. Or, maybe a piece of hair from Mary Magdalene, or whatever it is, a tooth from St. Peter, and they'll put it in there, and you go worship it, which is such a stupid thing to build these for. And so, it has been suggested that these were like transportable ways, maybe to heat a house or energy or something. There's something that they put in there that had an external power to it. I had to throw these in because, you got to throw up your street creds there, the age of Pisces. These were from the Middle Ages as well. Pretty cool stuff. I feel like I want one of these on my desk So if somebody wants to gift me with something, I want one of these big old like hand things to put on my my desk for when I work. Okay, but I came across these in a medieval text, and these really fascinated me. Now we see these same objects, and they have what may be manna in it. Now you know that these are communion bread because we're seeing the body of Mashiach in it. And again, what is the manna from heaven, right? So time and again they're carrying it, and there's this in these things are this bread substance. It's just very odd, and they put in these places of honor, stuff like that. Here's just picture after picture after, or I shouldn't say picture, but illustration after illustration, and we even see angels surrounding it. So they're telling us that there's something in these reliquaries that is very spiritual, that connects with the angelic realm. Constant pictures of angels surrounding it with this bread, and you actually see, remember, eat my flesh, right? This is the bread that I give to you, and you see here the body of Mashiach and all of this. Now again, this could just be official history, Catholic Church, that kind of stuff, or we could be looking into some residue for something really strange going on. This again, my theory is we're looking at the manna that was promised to the residents of the millennial kingdom. And maybe they appeared in these things. Maybe it was magical. Maybe there it was. This was how it came down, and they went and collected it out of here. Who really knows? So there's several examples of that. Here's a few more. And you see them, they're feeding it. Again, I know, I get it, right? It looks like communion. Now, this one over here, like this is totally Jesuit, but even you could tell with the baby angels, this is Renaissance era. So, but I threw that in anyways. And this one here, I love these two angels holding this one up. And you see it in there. There's a big old something in there. Big old, it could be an orb, but it looks like a piece of manna. I mean, and I'm going to be ending on this tonight. What is a graven image? Now, a couple of weeks ago, because this was in our passage last week about you're going to go into the land. No graven images, right? Now, I don't want to lead anyone down a path of a graven image. And when I gave you can't talk about the Shroud Turin without somebody coming out and saying that's a graven image. All right. Now, why are they saying, I'm going to tell you first and foremost, this is not a graven image. All right. So just hear me out to the end here. I'm going to show you what is a graven image. Okay. This right here is not a graven image. This is a graven image. Here we have pictures of two different popes. One is Francis. I think that's Benedict right there. And they are going to a graven image of Mary, the Queen of Heaven. And this idol, it could be that they are praying to the idol, or they are using the idol as a representation to remind them of who they're praying to. Either way, it's an idol. This is a graven image. A graven image is something that somebody constructed with their hands for the purpose of worshiping an Elohim other than Messiah or other than Yahweh. And of course, we are not to use any graven image to worship him. Now, some of you are saying, aha, well, that's the Shroud Turin. Well, hear me out on this. Hear me out. So here is a art piece, a very famous one, of Mary Magdalene, and she is looking into the flame. Kind of an interesting. There's also a mirror there. The mirror is for divine, which is just very fascinating painting. I've actually not commented on this one in any of my Mary Magdalene writings yet, but it's interesting that I show. And here's somebody, looking at a image that is painted by man. Is this a graven image? Well, if it is used for worship, it is. I don't believe it's used for worship. I don't believe it's a graven image. And in fact, my point is that I show artwork all the time, and nobody comes up and go, "Oh, you shouldn't show that artwork. That's a graven image." Well, clearly we're not worshiping it, right? I can show you a painting and we're not going. I have never seen anybody bow down and worship this. Not saying that they don't. Here's the girl with the pearl earring. I've never seen that one in person. Down here at the bottom, the Mona Lisa. I have seen the Mona Lisa in person. It was one of the biggest disappointments of my wife's life. She brings it up all the time, how disappointing it was. I actually loved it. I really enjoyed the experience. And we also knew that when you go to the Louvre, it's the biggest attraction there. You can literally stand in line for like 4 hours or something waiting to see the Mona Lisa. And we knew this in advance and we went straight to it. Like we weren't like running, like it was like a, Black Friday sale, but we were walking briskly and we got there in the room. We were one of the first ones there and already the whole room was crowded. And it was just like that, where it's just like you're standing behind all these people's heads and it's literally this big. It's the size of a dinner plate. Like that's how small the Mona Lisa is. It is, imagine the dinner plate you ate on tonight. It is that big. We think of this like this huge thing. It's not. It's very small. Anyways, and you go into these museums here in Europe and it's overwhelming how many paintings there are. You just sit there and you stare at them all. Some of them get this big. Actually, I've seen paintings way bigger than this in Europe and France and stuff. And they're just massive where the people are larger than you. And it's just overwhelming, right? These are all made by the hands of men. All right. And I threw this one in because I love this picture. I don't even know what she's looking at, but it's like one of the most awesome pictures from the 1950s in a time period I wish I could live. Okay, here's a great one. Ark of the Covenant. What is this? What's going on with this? We have a command to actually build these, fashioned by the hands of man, these 2 cherubim. What in the world's going on here? And I've seen people in the Torah community arguing that's a graven image. So keep in mind, when in the books of Moses, right, the 5 books of Moses, if it says not to have a graven image, and in the same books of Moses we have the construction of this, maybe we need to kind of read, maybe our understanding of what a graven image is wrong. Just throw that out there. We're not talking about books that were made thousands of years later. Within the context of Moses, maybe we have what a graven image is wrong. Okay, if Yah says not to have a graven image, and then he commands this to be made. All right. So again, whenever I show pictures of Yahushua HaMashiach, I don't get that. What is it about the Shroud of Turin? I'm about to get to it. The Shroud is a graven image argument. Now, by definition, a graven image is a man-made object or piece of artwork, such as a statue that is worshipped as a god, or maybe even in place of and representative of the said god, as we saw with the Pope with Mary. The Ark of the Covenant has cherub angels carved on top of it. Is that a graven image? It's certainly man-made artwork. So why isn't the Ark decried as being pagan? Perhaps because the images, though representative of actual celestial beings, were never intended to be worshipped as God or a lesser god. It might not stop someone from worshiping the cherub as their god. Someone might go to the Ark of the Covenant and worship those angels, but that wasn't the created intent. Notice how I show many depictions of Messiah, and nobody calls those a graven image. Most people don't have a problem with the Messiah being depicted on the basis that Yahweh, or the son of Yah, according to most, he became flesh incarnate. He became a physical being. He took on the material features of a baby, and then a boy, and then a young man, with pimply faced young man, and finally a man, becoming a person, a flesh and blood person like you and me. So why is the Shroud any different? All right. So here's some pictures of the Shroud. In calling the Shroud a graven image, what the person is actually doing, pay attention, is calling it a man-made artwork without bothering to let you know that that is their tactic. The problem is that they are incapable of proving it is a man-made artwork. Nobody can prove it. Or rather, it is quite impossible to show it to be a hoax, which is normally what hoax busters are very good at. And need I remind you, the Shroud is very, very, very old, not recent. It is like, according to the Dark Age theory, it's 1,000 years old, even though now, in the last couple of weeks, it's been proven to be 2,000 years old. And unbelievable. The moon landing happened, 50, 60 years ago, and that is provably a fake. It is so obviously a fake. We can look at all this stuff and go fake, 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 fake. And yet this was done by medieval artists, and nobody can prove this to be a fake because it was not made by man. So they can't prove it. So they're just like, they just go to the next thing. It's a graven image. It's like, no, it's not a graven image because you can't prove it to be man-made. You guys following? And by the way, they may even have alternate reasons for wishing it were not legit. Like perhaps maybe they're a black Israelite. And that's a problem since the man within is an olive-skinned color, Mediterranean, like a Spaniard, Italian. He looks like he grew up in the Mediterranean world, a nice kind of oily brown skin. So right there, that's a problem. So they don't like that. So they're like, yeah, that's a fake. Rather than tell you their political alliances, they'd rather go with the cookie cutter copy and paste line, which they pulled off the internet, that it's a graven image. And so they circumnavigate the evidence showing it to be a natural image by shouting the conclusion to their failed thesis that it is graven image when it is provably not man-made artwork. So I just want to point this out to everyone that if someone could show that it is made by men, then yes, we can then say it is a graven image, though even still, you would have to then show me that people are actually worshiping the shroud. If people are, I mean, nobody should worship the shroud. If someone is worshiping the shroud, that's an issue. It could be the same thing with Ark of the Covenant, the 10 Commandments, anything like that. People can go worship those things, like if there's like another temple built, people can go actually literally worship the temple rather than the creator. You see what I'm saying? So hopefully nobody is going to worship the shroud. But again, if it is the effect of a literal resurrection, that's not artwork. That is just a document to an amazing thing. And I am so convinced that the man within resurrected, the only way to convince me that it's not Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, is to convince me that it's just some other guy that resurrected from the dead. Like the millennial kingdom happens and there's resurrections everywhere, and this guy resurrects in a shroud. And he would have had to die, 3 days earlier, exact same death as Messiah, exact same time of the year in that part of the world, so on and so forth. Anyways, that was it tonight. I have more material here, but I'll just get to another week. I love doing these. Thank you everyone for making it a tradition in your home. And again, all praise to Yah. If I get like overexcited sometimes, if I get passionate, some people, again, like it makes them uncomfortable, but it's hard to read the Bible, the Torah, where Yah is like, he is so like, this is how I want you to worship me, and not get excited about that. And my desire again is I want to see you be successful. It will bring me so much joy to see other people enter the kingdom in eternity. I mean, I'm just going to be thrilled to be there. I'm going to be like, if I make it through that gate, I'm going to be on my face on the floor, like spaghetti, like unable to move. I'm going to be so just worn out and exhausted and be like, I can't, it'd be like, in those scenes in a shipwreck where someone is off at sea and they have to swim they're just thrilled to see a tropical island out in the middle of the ocean, and they swim in and they barely make it, and they just fall down on the sand, and the waves are still washing over them, and it's going in their mouth, but they don't care. And they're just clutching the soil and they're like, I made it, I'm alive. That's what I'm going to be like in the kingdom. And one of you are going to have to come along and like hand me a beer. It's gonna be like 10 years later, the party's going on, be like, okay, you can get up now. Here's a beer. We've been enjoying ourselves over here. You can come join us now. Like, that's what it's going to be like. And I'm going to be so overjoyed to look around and recognize people, or to hear from somebody going like, Noel, thank you for, your service. Just a little smidge that, you gave us these seeds, and we were success. We made into the kingdom too. And I know that every single time that somebody repents and they turn to Yah, heaven rejoices. The angels rejoice, right? That's what this is all about. It's about getting us to repent and turn to Yah. Maybe that's just the preacher in me, Anyways, love you guys. I'm going to keep doing this. See you guys next week. And I have, plenty more material to give in the future. Enjoy your Sabbath, everyone. Praise Yah. Good night.